Hi and welcome to my pattern making tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to make a basic waist block, which is your foundational block for every top variation that you'd like to make. Here are the key measurements that you need. Take a screenshot, take a note, and measure your own measurements to then begin. So the first thing you need to do is take your nape to waist measurement and draw the vertical line. I always get that one mixed up. And don't forget to square off horizontally to the left and to the right. So that will form the waist line. And you should also square the top, and that is your neckline. Now that you have those two lines, we're going to find your armhole depth measurement and then square to the left. As you can see, the armhole depth measurement is used from measuring down on the vertical line from the neckline. And we only need to square left for the moment. Now we're going to find our across back level, and that is not a measurement that we took earlier, but rather it is the distance or the halfway point between our neckline and our armhole depth. So you need to measure that point and then find the center point and then square to the left. So there's only one more point that I need to find, and then I will be finalizing what we call the central tree kind of framework for the waist block. That line that I need to find is the shoulder level. Now the shoulder level is a measurement that we took earlier, but it's roughly around about 4 centimeters. And so I've just measured that and then squared to the left. And as you can see, I have my neckline, my shoulder level, my across back level, my armhole level, and my waist level. Now that we have finished this central tree, I'm going to finish off the back of my pattern block. And to do this, I'm going to use the quarter bust measurement and minus 1.25 centimeters from the back bust line. Now the reason why we do that is because naturally the back of our bodies is smaller than the front. Now the bust line is essentially the armhole line on this pattern block, so you're just going to measure to the left the 20 centimeters, which was your quarter measurement, minus 1.25. Don't forget to square up and down to close that block off. That becomes your center back. Now coming in from the top, we're going to now measure the half back neck width, which was a measurement that we took earlier. We're going to mark that point and then square up by roughly 1.5 centimeters, just as a guide. And then we're going to curve and connect that point, and that becomes our neckline. Now we're going to take our shoulder length measurement, and we're going to use that measurement and touch the shoulder level. So just pivot your ruler to then touch that shoulder level and ensure that you've got the shoulder length correct in that measurement. Okay, we're almost there with the back pattern block. Now we need to take our half across back measurement and square from the left of our pattern block, which is our center back, and use that measurement to move towards the right and then mark that point. Now that is your across back measurement and states where the armhole curve should curve essentially. So as you can see, now I'm just using my curved ruler to then connect that curve to close off the back measurement. Now from across that back line measurement, I'm going to create a dotted line just right down to where the armhole depth is, and I'm going to use that as a guide so that I can then measure the distance between the center back and that point. Then I divide that by 2, and I'm marking that because that's going to be where my dart for the back occurs. So I'm just squaring up and down for my guide, and that is, like I said, the center point. And then I'm going to measure 1 centimeter to the left and to the right, and then connect up my darts. Naturally, your darts won't be this long, but this is kind of the guide that you use for darts. Your darts can be however long you prefer them. And that is the back of the block finished. Now we're going to move on to the right hand side, which is our center front. Now, to do the center front, we're going to take our quarter bust measurement again, but this time we are going to add 1.25 centimeters because we subtracted it previously from the back. And that is now going to form our armhole depth line, and we're just going to square to the right, connecting that line to the measurement that you've just calculated. Don't forget to square up and down to really close off that block. Now that line forms your center front line. Now what I'm doing is I'm measuring the distance between the back, neck, and the armhole depth. Then I'm going to add 2 centimeters to now form the center front shoulder level, essentially. This is, you just always, it doesn't matter what your measurement is, you just always add that 2 centimeters. It's just a general guide that tends to work really well for me. So I've just measured that up and added the 2 centimeters, and that's become my left horizontal line. Now we're going to mark our neck base. Now the neck base generally is around about 7.5 to 8 centimeters, and you're essentially just measuring down from your top shoulder line downwards, and that's roughly sitting below your collarbone, and that's kind of where your neck allowance is. Now I square to the left. This can be flexible, your neckline, because naturally when you measure your shoulder line, you're going to measure it similar to how we did the back. Now what I'm doing here is measuring the true chest line, and that is roughly 4 centimeters above the armhole depth. And I'm just going to create that marking there, like so, and that essentially will become the point for the top dart, which I will show you shortly. Now let's finish the top center front neckline, and how we do that is we measure the distance between the back neckline, like so, and then we're going to minus 0.2 centimeters. That gives us the measurement, and then we're just going to mark from the right hand side to the left, like so. Now the 0.2 centimeters subtraction is to allow for a little bit of ease, but if you don't use it, 0.2 centimeters is not going to ruin your pattern. Don't forget to then connect that line using your curved ruler, of course. Now the next step is to measure the dart width, and I am actually going to use a 7 centimeter dart, which means I've got to mark that 7 centimeters from the right point of my pattern, as you can see, and then also mark the halfway point. Now you'll see once I draw the dart what's happening here, but essentially you need to square down, and that's the center of the dart, and then you're also going to then connect all of that, but you're going to only connect it to the bust line guide that we drew earlier. And as you can see, my dart connects right to the corner of my top. Now I'm going to draw in the shoulder, similar to what we did earlier. For the back quarter of the pattern, we're going to use our shoulder measurement, and then we're going to actually use the full shoulder measurement and continue to pivot until we hit the shoulder line. Now, as you can see, my shoulder line wasn't long enough, so I had to extend it. This is why the curved neckline is not too much of a concern, the measurement that you use, because you do pivot your ruler to meet the correct shoulder length. Now from here, we're going to use our half across chest measurement and divide that by 2. And we're going to measure from the center front, which is the far right, inwards, and mark that, and that is going to be our armhole curve. Use your curved ruler to connect that all up, touching that side seam in the center where we've just drawn the back pattern block. And there we have it. Now we're going to go, I'm just playing here a little bit because it does look a little bit over curved. However, I did make this pattern block specific to a client that I was making a top for, and these are her measurements, so they are a perfect fit. So I did just want to double check that. Now I am going to draw the bottom of the dart, and I just connect that line up, and then I'm going to use 1 centimeter again, both to the left and to the right. And then connecting that up to the armhole depth line, similar to the back of the pattern, like so. Now there is one last step that we need to do, and that is to measure the waistline to your measurements that you took earlier. Now, as mentioned, I am making this for a client. So the waistline is 81.5, and I divide that by 4 centimeters. Remembering that your center back and your center front have been altered slightly because we made the back smaller, we do need to just take that into account. So I'm marking the center back and the center front, because that quarter measurement will actually be subtracted by 1.25 for the center back and subtracted by and add 1.25 for the center front. Here I'm also marking the gap between the darts. Now, generally when you are resizing your waistline, you're going to resize from the side seam, which, as you can see here, I'm marking as 1 centimeter. However, what you will note, or what I noted when I was making this pattern, because you continue to increase the size of that side seam based on the size of your client, what I had noted was that my client's waist didn't actually require that subtraction, in particular when I was utilizing the dart. So what I did was I essentially just measured every single point excluding the dart, like so. So the first point on my center back is 8 centimeters. My second point excluding the dart was 11 centimeters. And then moving to the center front, I'm now measuring that point as well, similar to what I did at the back. And that was 11.5 centimeters, with the last distance, again, excluding the dart measurement, at 8.5 centimeters. Now, that is excluding the 1 centimeter allowance that you would normally have from the side seam. So when I added all of those together, as mentioned, ignoring the side seam 1 centimeter exclusion, when I added all of these together, the 8 plus 11 equals 19, and that was close enough to the center back measurement that I needed to obtain, which was the 19.125. Now, when I measured the front, the center front, the 11.5 plus 8.5 centimeters, I realized that I got the 8.5 centimeters wrong on the other side. It's actually 9.5 centimeters. So luckily I identified that, otherwise I would have had to create allowance or reduce the dart. So when you add the 11.5 centimeters with the 9.5 centimeters, then I got the 21 centimeter center front, which was close enough to the center front measurement that I needed to achieve with all of those calculations beneath my pattern. So as you can see, I had to omit those 1 centimeter lines because I don't actually need them, because her waist is wider, and I don't actually have to subtract and reduce that waistline to make the pattern fit. And I'd rather do that on the side than reduce the dart, because the dart is really what gives the top shape. And that is the finished pattern. I will show you how I use this pattern in the next video to create her peplum top, which is what she had asked for, and you can see how I make those alterations, and you can actually see how it fits, because luckily her size is actually my size as well, and I was able to make one for myself as well as make one for my client, and so it was a perfect solution for me. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe so I can make more videos and share some pattern making tips that I use when I'm drafting clothes for myself or for my friends and family